Did they really say, ugh? It's a good question. You stub your toe. You see a pile of paperwork. You remember an awkward thing you said 5 years ago, and the sound just comes out. Ugh. A grunt, a short, sharp burst of air and sound that says everything. It means frustration. It's disgust, annoyance, effort. It's not really a word. It's more of a feeling that escapes your mouth. So, did our ancient ancestors walking across the savannah a million years ago make that same sound? When a Homo erectus stubbed his toe on a rock, did he grunt out a prehistoric The short answer is yes, probably, almost certainly. Just not in English, obviously. But the sound, the raw vocalization of displeasure, that's ancient, that's baked into our DNA. It's older than language itself. To understand why, you have to go back. Way back. Before words, before sentences, before we even had the right throat shape to ask a question like this one. And communication didn't start with words. It started with sounds and bodies. An animal shows its teeth. That's communication. A bird sings a certain song. That's communication. A chimpanzee hoots. That's also communication. We are animals. Our communication started the same way, with grunts, sighs, hoots, and gestures. These were the tools we had for a very, very long time. Think about what an UGH sound actually is. Forget the letters UGH. Those are just our modern attempt to write it down. The sound itself is a guttural noise. It comes from deep in the throat and chest. It's often a glottal stop, that little catch in your throat you hear in ooh. It's an expulsion of air. It's simple. It doesn't require complex tongue movements or fine-tuned lips. It's a raw, basic sound, and basic sounds are old. Our closest living relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, have a whole vocabulary of these kinds of sounds. They grunt when they find good food. They make a different kind of grunt when they are traveling. They have alarm calls, threat barks, and soft pants to greet each other. These aren't words like apple or hello. They are direct links between a sound and a situation or a feeling. A chimp doesn't grunt about the food it ate yesterday. It grunts about the food right in front of it. It's immediate, it's in the moment. This is what early human communication was probably like. It was a toolbox of sounds tied to the here and now. Ugh, this root is bitter. Ugh, that is a lion. Ugh, lifting this branch is hard. The sound would have been a signal to the rest of the group, and that's the key. Communication isn't just about expressing your own feelings. It's about affecting the behavior of others. If one early human ate a poisonous berry and made a sound of disgust, a guttural blesh, or the others would learn not to eat that berry. That person's UGH could save the lives of their family. It's a huge survival advantage. If a group was trying to move a large log to build a shelter, and they all grunted with effort in unison, it would help coordinate their pushing. The grunts would act as a rhythm, a shared signal of strain. Heave, heave, ugh. This is still something we do today. People in a gym lifting heavy weights grunt. Movers lifting a heavy sofa grunt. The sound is a physical response to exertion. It tightens the core and helps regulate breathing. It's a functional sound. So our ancestors definitely made these kinds of sounds. They would have had a noise for disgust, for effort, for pain, for warning. The exact phonetics might have been different. Maybe it sounded more like grr or ack or something we don't even have a way to write. But the function was the same. It was a pre-linguistic emotional vocalization. It comes from a different part of the brain than language. When you decide to say the sentence, I am feeling quite annoyed right now, you are using the cortex. The newer, more advanced part of your brain that handles logic, planning, and grammar. When you just blurt out, ugh, that's coming from a deeper, older place, the limbic system. The part of the brain that handles raw emotion, instinct, and fight or flight responses. This is the part of the brain we share with other mammals. It's the ancient wiring. Our language is the new software we installed on top of that old hardware, but the old hardware is still there. It still runs, and sometimes it bypasses the new system completely. When you are surprised by a loud noise, you don't think, my, that was a startling auditory event. You jump and maybe yell. That's the old system taking over. It's the same thing. It's an emotional reflex that we've turned into a sound. For millions of years, this was the primary way we communicated vocally. A set of instinctual calls, this system works well enough for a small group of hominids. But it has limits. You can say, lion when you see a lion. But you can't use a grunt to say, I saw a lion by the river yesterday. We should be careful when we go there tomorrow. That requires language. It requires symbols that can be rearranged to talk about things that are not right here, right now. It requires tense, past, present, future. The journey from a simple ugh to complex language was incredibly long and slow. It wasn't a single event. It happened over hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years. And it involved changes to our bodies and our brains. One of the biggest physical changes was the position of our larynx, our voice box. In most mammals, including chimpanzees, the larynx sits high in the throat. This allows them to breathe and swallow at the same time, which is useful, but it severely limits the range of sounds they can make. A human baby is born with a high larynx, like a chimp. But as the baby grows, the larynx descends, moving lower down in the neck. This descended larynx is a huge deal. It creates a large open space in the back of the throat called the pharynx. This space acts as a resonating chamber. By changing the shape of this chamber with our tongue, we can create a huge variety of distinct vowel sounds. Think of the difference between e, ah, and oo. A chimpanzee can't make those distinct sounds. Their vocal toolkit is much smaller. Our ability to form a wide range of clear, distinct sounds is the foundation of spoken language. But this came at a cost, a big one. Our low larynx makes it much easier for us to choke on our food. The airway and the food passage crossover. For evolution to select for such a dangerous trait, the benefit had to be massive. And that massive benefit was language. The ability to communicate complex ideas was a bigger survival advantage than the disadvantage of occasionally choking. So as our throats were changing, our brains were changing too. The brain of an early hominid like Australopithecus was about the size of a chimpanzee's. The brain of Homo habilis was bigger. The brain of Homo erectus was bigger still. And the brain of Homo sapiens is the biggest of all, especially in the areas related to complex thought and communication, like the frontal lobe. As our brains grew, so did our capacity for symbolic thought. A word is a symbol. The sound water is not water. It's a set of vibrations in the air that we all agree represents the clear liquid that we drink. The ability to use symbols is the leap from grunting about what's in front of you to talking about ideas. How did that happen? Nobody knows for sure. It's one of the biggest mysteries in science. But we can make some good guesses. Maybe it started with combining sounds. Maybe a grunt for bod and a squeak for berry got combined to mean bodberry. Maybe gestures came first. Maybe we pointed and grunted, and eventually the grunts became more specific. The theory of proto-language suggests that we went through a stage of me Tarzan, you Jane type speech. Simple nouns and verbs, but no real grammar. Ugh, rock heavy. Bring food. This is already a huge leap from just grunting. It communicates a specific need. From there, grammar could have developed slowly to add more detail and nuance. I will bring the food later. That rock is too heavy for me to lift alone. Throughout this whole process, the old sounds didn't just disappear. They stuck around. They became the foundation. Even today, our language is full of emotional onomatopoeic sounds. Words like crash, bang, slurp, and hiss are attempts to mimic the sounds of the world. And our non-word vocalizations are still a huge part of how we communicate. A sigh can communicate more than a full sentence. A gasp of surprise is universal. A laugh is pure pre-linguistic communication of joy. We understand these sounds instinctively. We don't need a dictionary. You can watch a foreign film with no subtitles and understand the emotional content of a scene just from the sighs, laughs, and groans of the actors. Is part of this universal emotional toolkit. The specific sound might vary from language to language. In German, it might be ach. In Spanish, a. But the concept of a short guttural sound for frustration is everywhere. It's a human universal, because the feeling is universal. So when we imagine our ancestors, we shouldn't think of them as silent. They would have lived in a world of sound. The sounds of nature, yes, but also the sounds of each other. Grunts of effort, cries of pain, happy hoots, warning calls, their lives were social. They depended on each other to survive, and that dependence required communication. The first, was probably uttered out of pure physical reflex. A hominid bit into something foul, and the body's rejection reflex, the gagging, came out as a sound. Others heard it. They saw the disgust on the face of their companion. They saw the half-chewed thing spat out on the ground. And they learned. Sound plus face plus action meaning. Don't eat that. Or maybe the first was a sound of strain. A few of them trying to push over a dead tree to get at the grubs underneath. The physical effort of pushing, of tensing all your muscles, forces air out of your lung. Add a voice to it, and you get a grunt. That sound became associated with hard work. It's easy to see how these sounds became standardized within a small group. They became signals. They weren't words yet. They didn't have grammar, but they were the seeds of language. They were the first step in using our voices to intentionally share our inner world with others, to make the tribe stronger, safer, and more coordinated. Today, we have tens of thousands of words. We have poetry and legal documents and science textbooks. We can talk about quantum physics and the meaning of love. Our communication system is incredibly complex and powerful, but every now and then we revert. We get overwhelmed or frustrated, and the complex system shuts down for a second. The old wiring takes over, and we let out a simple, honest, ancient sound. Ugh. It connects us. It connects us to each other when we share a moment of frustration. But it also connects us to that long line of ancestors, to the ones who first discovered that a sound could be a tool, that a grunt could save a life, that a shared sigh could build a bond. We don't know the exact sounds they made. Their voices are lost to time. We can look at their fossilized bones, we can see the shape of their skulls, and try to reconstruct their vocal tracts. We can infer what they could and could not say. We know a Neanderthal, with their different throat and mouth shape, would have sounded very different from us. Their vowels would have been less distinct. Their speech, if they had it, might have sounded more nasal and less clear. Going further back to Homo erectus, the differences would be even greater. Their ability to produce the sounds necessary for modern speech was likely non-existent. But they could absolutely produce sounds. They had lungs, they had a larynx. They could grunt and roar and hoot and cry, and in that vocabulary of raw, emotional noise, there was certainly a sound for disgust. A sound for exertion, a sound for frustration, a sound that did the exact same job that our ugh does today. It was a way of telling the group this is bad or this is hard without needing a single word. It was pure communication, efficient, direct, honest. So, did they really say ugh? Yes. In their own way, with their own voices and their own throats, they expressed that exact same feeling. The feeling is the constant. The sound is just the form it takes. And that feeling, that basic human reaction to the unpleasantness of the world, is one of an unbroken chain that stretches all the way back. It's a thread of shared experience. It's the sound of being a primate trying to get by in a challenging world. Maybe the most honest word we have.